friends. I'm Michelle, and this is my channel, Penny's Daughter Shares. Welcome to my 2022 Finish Parade. I have lots of finishes to share with you. If you're new here, welcome. I hope you enjoy it. And if you do like it, please like and subscribe to my channel. If you are returning, welcome back. And this is going to be full of the same sort of fun that I like to share. So if you've been here before, you're coming back because you liked something, and I think you're going to see a lot more of what you will like. Now, I had 46 stitchy finishes in the year 2022. I am not going to show all 46 in this current video. Let's see, it's going to be more like about 30. Yeah, that was easy math. If you're interested in the other 16, and actually it may not be quite 30, but we'll see how it goes. Because I shared my FFOs, which there were all of 4 of, in my 2022 FFO parade that is up on my channel. So you can check those 4 out for sure on that parade. The other 16 finishes that I had were all 12 of Brenda Gervais wordplay series, which I plan to finish, FFO on. I'm pointing my finger backwards, so it's taking me a minute here. There we go. See my perpetual calendar there? That's where I'm going to do my FFOs of the wordplay series. So there's 12, plus another 4, which are Jeannette Douglas seasonal designs. And I don't think it has a name to the series. I think each chart has a name, but they're all baskets of flowers with specialty stitches. I showed all 16 of those stitchy finishes in my FFO parade. And like I said, you can go check that out at that video, which is also on my channel. So I think what we're gonna do is dive in because I have somewhere close to 30 to share with you today. And I'm looking at my list, and I have 9 new stitchy finishes that I have not shared on Flosstube before. So I'm going to start with those, which are the most recent stitchy finishes in 2022. And then I'll work back from there. We'll see how it goes as the video goes along. But these first 9 are new to the Flosstube channel. If you follow me on Instagram, you have seen them, but now you'll see them. Let's see, I think someone teased me, it's called, you're gonna see them in real life. It's on a video rather than a still picture, I guess. So up first is Braceface from Raise the Roof Designs. I'm pretty sure this is an out of print chart. I don't know if you could track one down or not. I happened to come across this on one of the stash unloading groups on Facebook. And my 2 younger kids both got braces this past summer. And I happened to find it, I think just before they got their braces on, whatever. It was right around that time. And I was like, I have to have that and stitch it in honor of them getting their braces. And here is my finish. Now on the chart, you can see those little butterflies there, and those are buttons. I chose to leave those off and just do the stitching, so to speak. I don't feel like the butterflies add to it for my purposes, and with my fabric that I chose is nice and dark and a lot going on in terms of texture and the color. So here are the details. I stitched this on 40 count. It is Bird Cage from XJU Design. XJU Design is one of my favorite linens, and 40 count is my favorite count, so you'll see a whole lot of that. Because I stitched on 40 count, that means I used one floss thread over 2 linen threads. And while I stayed true to the integrity of the design choices in terms of the floss colors, I mostly did my own choices, although some of them are what was called for. A big change is what I used to stitch the pumpkin, the majority of the pumpkin, not the lines. I wanted a more particular color and I wanted it to have some variegation. So let's see, I used, yes, okay. I used Weeks Dye Works Carrot for my pumpkin. Took me a minute to figure that out from my notes. Excuse me. And the braces, you can see I used Crynic. That's the first time I've used Crynic, and, well, no, not the first time, but the first time of stitching kind of close together. And it was difficult to work with a little bit. I mean, obviously more difficult than just regular cotton floss, right? But I really like the way it looks. So it was worth the extra effort that it took. You can say I added the year here, which is the year I stitched it. It's also the year they got their braces on. So it works together. And then normally I have just my initials, which are right here. But I also added Vivian's initials and Justice's initials here and here, again, in honor of them getting their braces on. I have a sort of frame finish planned for this, and I have the piece to fully finish it on. And I'm pretty sure this made my priority list for 2023 and my FFO challenge. So that is Braceface from Raise the Roof Designs. All right, and I'm going to try something a little different. I'm using a board here with clips, and so I'm going to see if it's okay if I take the time to clip my pieces on the board, if it's a little easier for me to show you things. And I'll try to do that at the same time that I can talk and do it, hopefully. We're going to try it. So while I'm talking, up next in these 9 more current finishes or end of year finishes is the Reverend Gourdon Squashbottom from Notforgotten Farm. Obviously, this is the chart picture. All right, and now let's see my finish. Here it is. All right. So, stitchy details. First of all, I don't know why I cut this piece of fabric so huge, and I don't know why, but it is what it is. Stitchy details. The fabric itself is 40 count. It is in the color Endora from Needle and Flax, another of my favorite linens. I love this color, and it's perfect for Halloween type stitching. Well, in my opinion anyway. Like I said, 40 count fabric, that means I stitched 1 floss thread over 2 linen threads. Now, would you like to see it straight rather than crooked? The chart calls for all DMC colors, and I liked all those colors, but I wanted some variegation in my stitching, in particular for the pumpkin head and his jacket and his pants. So while I stayed true to I'm trying to figure out how to hold this steady. There we go. While I stayed true to the integrity of Lori's design choices with color, I created my own conversion in color and cotton flosses. So this was stitched completely with color and cotton flosses. And for sure, you can definitely see the variegation here in the pumpkin face and in his jacket and in his pants. Some of the other areas, it's a little harder to tell that there's, you know, some variation in the color of the floss, but I really love how it turned out. And like I said, I stayed true to the integrity of the design choices that she had made with her colors. So I'm really happy with that. Here I've got my initials and the date. And this is one of those projects that I'm really happy with how I placed those. I think they look really cool and almost like part of the design. The other change I made to the chart itself, the date that was charted did not have a significance to me personally. So I decided to change this big date up here to something that is significant to me and my family. So what is significant about 1998 is that is the year I met my husband, Jeff. That is also the year of our first date. Our first date was October 10th of that year. So in the month of October and during Halloween time. So I thought 1998 was a very fitting date to put on this one. So that's why I made that choice. As for FFO, I have a frame that I purchased that this will look awesome in. I just need to get the FFO done. Hashtag FFO Challenge 2023. I know this one is on my list. I'm pretty sure Braceface is on my list to get done this year too, in my goal of 24 FFOs before the end of the year. So that's the Rev. Okay, let's see what's next. Like I said, I think that worked better. For me, it's a little easier to hold on to this if I have this clipped to the board rather than trying to hold it up on the board, even though there's the batting there to help hold it or, you know, to kind of grip it. So up next is number 3 in my more current finishes. And here is the chart picture. This is Merry Christmas from Brenda Gervais. And it's just so cute, isn't it? I love this one. And I had it all kitted up and intended to stitch it fairly soon, but someone posted on Instagram that they were getting theirs out to stitch. And I was like, well, I'm gonna pull mine out too. This was a little while ago. I don't even remember exactly when I finished it, maybe in November. So anyway, here is my stitchy finish. Now this one is stitched on 40 count. It is Marbled Pointer, right? Yes, okay, want to make sure I had the name right, from XJU Design. I've already told you how much I love XJU. And this particular die lot of Marbled Pointer has this lovely green tone to it, and it just looks fantastic with Christmas type stitching. So let's see. So 40 count Marbled Pointer, XJU Design. That means that I used 1 floss thread over 2 linen threads for my stitching. And let's see, I did a mix of called for flosses and some of my own choices. And some of it was like, for example, the white that I used for the beard and the snow and so on, I brightened it up a little because then it would show better on my stitch because of my fabric choice. I changed the red that I used for the Santa, just personal preference. I didn't change the integrity of the design color in this case. It's just I wanted a little different shade. Let's see. And then I think the other changes I made were very minor. They were only for a few stitches, or I didn't happen to have what was called for and used what I pulled, or pulled a DMC for an over-dyed floss. So, like I said, mix of called for and my own choices. And just to point out, here are my initials and the date on this one. So yeah, this one's really cute. I do not have an FFO plan for this one. It was a joy to stitch, and I obviously would love to get it FFO'd, but very, very likely to be sort of like a pillow, like it shows on the chart front, but I don't know, we'll see when I get closer to that point. All right, I will clip on my next one and start talking again. This next one, I don't know if I was scrolling through Instagram or Facebook at the time. Can't remember, but someone posted this and I want to say it was a shop. And I went digging because they posted a picture, but it didn't show the chart front. It didn't show the name of the chart or who it was by. I made an estimated guess. I asked a couple of friends for some input to see if they could help me. And I went and bought it as soon as I could find it, is what I want to say, because I just fell in love with it. And then as soon as I could put the floss together, I started stitching it. So, which is not like me. Usually I buy stuff and I have lots of kits and it just takes a while to get to it, to start. So this is called Turkey Love from Plum Street Samplers. This is an older pattern, but you can still find it out there. But I just fell in love with the colors of it and everything. Oh. And here is my stitchy finish. Now we're gonna stir things up a bit. This is not on 40 count. This one is on 32 count Nantucket, and that's from Color and Cotton. Since it's 32 count, that means I used 2 floss threads over 2 linen threads. And the chart itself is charted in silks, but Paulette has provided DMC conversion for all the colors. So I used the DMC conversion, except for 2 colors. One is the house itself. I used an overdyed floss for that because on the chart picture, the house has some variation in color and I wanted that to come through. So I used Gentle Arts Country Redwood, which seems, the best I can tell, to be a very close approximation to what was called for. The other change I made was these little hearts here. You can kind of see they're a peachy pink color. Rose, I don't know, whatever you would call that. And I did not like the DMC conversion color. For me, with the combination of the other flosses and my fabric choice, it felt a little bright when I put a few stitches in. And so I went looking and had in my head that I needed to find my bit of leftover Gentle Arts Wood Rose And that just has this toned down nature. It just has like a little brown or something in there that made it not quite as bright, but it's still basically the same color. And then I was like, yes, this is perfect when I put the stitches in. So I'm really happy because you can see the color. I think it goes really well. It still adds to the design, but for me, I think it looks just that little extra detail. The date on this one is what's charted. That is explained in the chart, and that is the year of the first Thanksgiving feast in the United States. So I decided to leave that as the year that is shown on here. But then I added my initials and the date I stitched it on each side there. As for an FFO, if you remember on the chart picture, it showed a black frame, and I found a black frame that I like for mine that I have. So all I have to do is put it together. And I hope this is on my priority list because I sure like it a lot, but I can't remember. I was ruthless when I made my priority list because I have so many outstanding stitch finishes, and I had to be realistic on my goal for my FFO challenge. And if you're wondering about this FFO challenge that I'm talking about, if you go watch my video, FFO parade video 2022, I also talk about my FFO plans for 2023 and the hashtag FFO challenge 2023. You can also go over to my Instagram, and I talked about it on there a little bit too. And if you have questions, let me know. All right, that is Turkey Love from Plum Street Samplers. So let's see, what number are we on? Number 5 of my fairly current finishes. Now this is a very new chart, and I fell in love with it and saw several other people stitching it, and so I put mine together and stitched it up. Oh, let me show you the chart. I'll tell you the name first. This one is Brenda Gervais, Joy and Good Cheer. And like I said, this is a very new chart. I don't know, was it released in November maybe? Maybe the end of October? I don't remember. But like I said, I just fell in love with it and had to pull it out. And here is my stitch finish. Now for the stitchy details. This one is stitched on 40 count. The color is Barley from Color and Cotton. And I just felt like this particular linen color was pretty close to what is called for on the chart, or what the sample was stitched on. Because it's 40 count, that means I stitched using 1 floss thread over 2 linen threads. And for flosses, I mostly used called for. There are a couple minor substitutions. Again, I'm going to say probably they were just a few stitches here or there, and I needed to swap out so that the stitching showed up a little better. None of the major, the reds and the blue in there, those are all called for in the words. So, and I also think, yes, in the white, I chose a slightly brighter shade. Just, again, it looked better on my fabric choice. So yeah, and then here you can see my initials and the date. As for an FFO, I do not have a specific plan for this. If you're familiar with her chart that is Be Ye Thankful, they're both, I think, part of a series that maybe is going to continue in through other seasons. And if so, then I will probably pick those up, and then I'll do something where I can have a stand and swap them out per season is my sort of plan in the back of my head, but we'll wait and see kind of where it goes. If that isn't the case and it's just sort of these two that are similar in size, then I'll probably just figure out how to finish them sort of on their own and obviously get them out for the corresponding seasons. So that is Joy and Good Cheer from Brenda Gervais. All right, so that wraps up number 5. Now we're on to number 6. Another very new chart that I fell in love with, and lots of other people were stitching too. This one, I will need to put a picture in for you here of the chart front. So this is Cardinal Kin from Plum Street Samplers. Like I said, it was a fairly new release, and I love cardinals. I know lots of people do, and I think probably lots of people have sort of that legend when you see a cardinal. It is, you know, a loved one that has passed, and if you've been around, you know that my mom passed a number of years ago and that her name was Penny. And so pennies are my thing with her, right? Well, cardinals, Jeff has chosen for his dad, which we're coming up close to about 5 years since he passed. And so cardinals are even sort of extra special in our house. And I'll have to tell you, I'll show you this. I have to share a story about cardinals. So this is my stitch finish. Let me give you the stitchy details before I go into my story. This is stitched on 40 count marbled pointer from XJU Design. That means I used 1 floss thread over 2 linen threads. And I used all the called for colors. Paulette has given us 2 options for what colors you would like to stitch this in. And I don't remember off the top of my head what she called each of them. This is the main chart picture on the front of the chart. Then there's an alternative option with deeper, richer, darker colors. I chose the lighter shades. I hope I'm explaining that okay. Anyone who has the chart, you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, so I stitched this all in called for, and I think it turned out fantastic on this linen. And I could not figure out how to do my initials on this one without sort of ruining the lines of the design, because you know, this border, and it's filled in pretty tight in there. So you can see I stitched them up here, and I did that because long term I'm pretty sure my FFO will be a small pillow like it shows on the chart. And so what I'll do is I'll use this little stitched bit and I'll make a little tag on the back of my pillow for my initials. So that's why I have that. And I'm just gonna hold this up while I tell my little story. So again, if you've been following me, you know that my mother-in-law passed over the past summer. And like I said, so my father-in-law had been gone for a little over 4 years at that point. And cardinals, if we see them, we know they're him. And it's a little bit of a drive from our house to where the funeral was. But our oldest son, Mitchell, decided he wanted to drive home between visitation and funeral the next day. We stayed with friends. The rest of us did. So when he was driving to meet up with us for the funeral, and this is in Leslie, Michigan, so it's these rural backcountry roads. And as he got very close to what was Grandma and Grandpa's house, he said he had to stop in the road because there was a cardinal crossing the street. And he said he had to stop, and he just knew that it was his grandpa. So that is just one of our stories, but that was a really big one, and it sticks out for all of us, especially because that was the day of Grandma's funeral. And so it just gave us all some extra love and strength that day. So yeah, so cardinals are pretty special. And I love this design. I think it is so cute. All right, on to the next one. What number are we up to? Number 7 of my 9 recent finishes. Okay, and again, I'm going to put a picture up here of the chart while I'm pinning it to my board. This is Jeannette Douglas, and it was her mini bouquet sampler stitch along during 2022. So each month she would post a new bouquet that you can see in the chart picture. And so you could follow along and stitch. Now I did not start at the beginning of the year. Like, I don't remember what month it was that I decided to catch up. Somewhere in July or August or something. And then I stitched each one to finish up the year. She also had the borders charted for us too, so that we could do the full layout like it shows in the chart picture. Okay, here is my finish. This is a big one, so I gotta back up a little. I stitched this. Okay, so this was a free stitch along, but I'm pretty sure she said she was going to take them off her website at the end of the year. And I'm not sure if she has plans to sell them or not. So if you missed it, I'm really sorry that I'm not sharing it soon enough this time. I've shared it other times, and you've seen it on Instagram, I'm sure, if you're there. But so that is my finish. I stitched this on 32 count gray gingham. It's from Zweigart. It's a Lugana, so it's definitely an even weave in there. And then to show you, so you can see how white this is, I sprayed this with Primitive Gatherings Instant Antique Spray, and it's like a walnut stain, to grungy this up and offset sort of the fanciness and the brightness of the bouquets. And I'm really happy with how this turned out. I think it looks really, really nice. I stitched everything in the called for flosses. I don't think I made any substitutions in this one. And I'm gonna show you a little more up close here. I'll just move it so you can see them a little better. So the upper, sorry, I had to think about it. So here is January, February, March, and so on till you get down to December. And like I said, she had that charted for us in the layout with the borders and such. And while we're down here at the bottom, I will show you my initials and the date. I can't remember, did I tell you? I stitched this on 32 count. That means 2 floss threads over 2 linen threads. And everything is stitched that way, including the year. But my initials, I actually stitched over 1, and I only used 1 floss thread to do that. So it's 1 over 1 for my initials. So I could fit them in there. But yeah, so that is my finish on the Jeannette Douglas Mini Bouquet Sampler Stitch Along. And I do have FFO plans for this. I have to do a little work on it to make sure it's gonna work out the way I have planned in my brain. So I'm not gonna bore you with the details if it's not gonna work out. I will share those when I get to the FFO, which I do know this is on my priority list. So this is part of my goal to get FFO'd by the end of 2023. All right, so that is, what did I say, number 7. All right, the next 2 are smaller in size. So this is number 8. And this was a joy to stitch. I absolutely love it finished. I think it turned out just gorgeous. And for being something, excuse me, sort of small, how it just turned out so wonderful. It really is sort of the definition of joy from stitching when it comes together like that. So this is from Abby Rose Designs. It is Primitive Merry Christmas Pillow. And oh, there we go. Got a better view there without a glare. All right. Sorry, need to wet my whistle all this talking. Here's my finish. Isn't it gorgeous? Oh, like I said, I love this one. I stitched this on 28 count Weeks Dye Works light khaki gingham linen. Because it's 28 count, that means I stitched using 2 floss threads over 2 linen threads. Let's see. And as for floss colors, I used pretty much the called for the most of it. I think there's one color where I substituted a DMC, and I don't remember if I had to look that up or if it's on the chart itself, the DMC substitution, but it was a few stitches and didn't make a tremendous amount of difference. Everything else I think I just had as leftovers from other projects. The big change that I made in the floss, and it didn't really change the design colors, is the words were charted in DMC 3371. Well, I love Classic Colorworks Black Coffee for that dark brown black kind of color. And there's just a slight variation in the color as you stitch. And I just love that shade. So I swapped out Classic Colorworks Black Coffee for the words. and I'm not sure if it shows on the video. I'll kind of tilt this a couple different ways. Maybe you can see in the words, it is a very slight variation. And to be honest, you know who would ever notice it? Me, or you, if you were looking at it because you're a stitcher. Any of my friends that are not stitchers, they would just look at it and go, oh, that's pretty. And would never really notice that there's a slight variation in the color, which is fine. I think you can tell from my smile how much I love black coffee. I just think that's such a great color. And so that gave me a whole lot of joy to use on this particular project. So it doesn't matter if other people don't notice it, if it's what I liked, right? Let's see, so I gave you the okay, yes. And then here are my initials and the date. And then if you remember from the chart picture, it shows a pillow finish with a bow and well, here, I'll just show you. A bow and a bell there at the top of the pillow. And I'm planning to do something similar to that sort of finish when I get to the FFO. So yeah, I love this one. Oh, just so pretty. All right, so number 9 and the final one in my most current finishes from 2022. Let me clip this on. See, I gotta get in this habit. This one I made a few changes here and there. Some will show on the video, some probably not very well, but I'll do my best to show you and see what you think. All right, so let's start with the chart picture. This is Plum Street Samplers Yuletide delivery. Now, I was one of those lucky people that got the Kitten Stitcher Advent box in 2021. This was one of the charts in there, one of my favorites that I pulled out of there, and I kitted it up. And so then I got it out this year to stitch it, especially once I saw she released it to everyone to be able to buy. I'm like, oh, I'm pulling that out and stitching it right now. So I had it a year ago, but anyone can get it now. Okay. All right, so here is my stitch finish. All right, and stitchy details. I stitched this on 40 count Brea from Needle and Flax. And I'm hoping it shows pretty well in the video here. There is a definite like rose or pink undertone to the modeling in the fabric, and it just sets off the colors in the chart so well. I mostly used called for colors, and so it went really, really well. And that's why I chose it. Because it's 40 count, that means I used 1 floss thread over 2 linen threads. And I love the basket of pears and this deer and the great big antlers with all the holly on them. I just love this. I think it's so pretty. And like I said, I used mostly called for flosses. Where I made a change, for the pinwheels and all the little snowflakes around, and this is where I'm going to try to shift this a little bit here and there to see, hopefully you can see what happens. I used DMC Etoile, and it is in the color Blanc or Blanc. I probably should pronounce it Blanc. I don't know French. So if you're not familiar, basically a strand one strand of DMC Etoile is made of DMC cotton fibers and a fiber of metallic woven in there. In this case, it is a silver strand. So it adds a little subtle sparkle, and I hope you can catch it there in the video. I'm trying, and I think I kind of maybe see a couple little sparkles in there, but it's hard to tell for sure. The only other place that sort of white was called for is the muzzle here and forehead on the deer, and I just pulled out, I don't know, Anchor White or DMC White or something. It's just a few stitches. Let's see, the other personalizations I did. Okay, so my initials in the year, I put there. And the fur trim on Mrs. Claus. So the end of her hat, her band of her hat, her mitten cuffs, and the hem of her dress. I used the called for floss, which was Classic Colorworks Vanilla Custard. I cross-stitched those as charted, and then I went back over those cross stitches with satin stitches. And I'm pretty sure you can see in the video here that it gave a definite three-dimensional look to it, which is what I was looking for. Something to give it a look of furriness, right? And so I'm really happy with that. The other thing it did for me is, and you can see the deer's stitched in that same color, because there were so few stitches in that color for all that fur trim, it sort of got lost without the satin stitches on my fabric choice. So that was the other thing that helped with that. So I'm very happy with how that turned out. The other change I made was the flag is charted to say December 25. And I wanted it to be different. And so I played around with a few different words, and I settled on the word joy because I think this shows joy. And then I just used a sort of simple snowflake sort of look for the O. And it fit right in there. So yeah, I'm really happy with this. I do not have an FFO plan for it. Although if I were to guess, I would say this probably will end up in some sort of a frame finish. But we'll see when I get there. It was very fun to stitch. It took a lot more time than I expected it to. And it sort of, as much as I enjoyed stitching it, it sort of felt like the never-ending stitch because I kept feeling like, oh, I'm almost done. I'll probably finish today. And the end of the day would come and I'm like, nope, not finishing today. And then I know I had a second day that thought the same thing. Now, granted, I was stitching this in the lead up to the holidays. And actually, I finished it after Christmas, I think. So the holiday stuff was going on. So it wasn't like I could just dedicate a lot of time to stitching it, right? I did Christmas baking. We had get-togethers. We did other things. And so I know there was at least 3 days that I thought, today's the day I'm going to finish. And it would go again. Not get finished. But the results are fantastic. All right, so that wraps up 9 of my stitch finishes. Those are the most recent from 2022. Are you ready to continue this finish parade marathon? That's what's kind of feeling like to me. what was no time to you, because I'm putting these videos together, I had to frantically search for one of my finishes that I wanted to show you. And I like looked in every nook and cranny in my craft room and ended up finally finding it in my drawer of stitched finishes that I didn't see it the first time. That's the first place I looked. And I didn't see it. And I think I went back a second time and still didn't see it. And finally went through each individual one until I found it. So what I decided on sort of the order is now I'm going all the way back to my first finishes of 2022, and then I'll come forward. So there is no like order in terms of season or like a category or anything. I'm simply doing it in order of when I finished stitching them. The other thing I'm going to do with these is, because I've shared them before, I'm not going to be as slow and methodical and give as much detail as I did on the first 9, because I've showed them to you before. And so for those of you that have watched before, and some, I'm sure you don't need to hear me repeat everything. And if this is the first time you're seeing these, great. If I go over something or forget a detail that you're interested in, send me a quick email, drop a comment down below, message me on Instagram. That's another resource. You can go back and look at my old videos, although you won't necessarily know specific projects in each video, right? So, but maybe that would be fun for you. I don't know. What you can do is go to my Instagram, because everything is posted on Instagram. You may have to go back a ways, but you'll be able to see the picture of it and know that that's the post, and it'll give you more detail. If you want an answer to a question right now that you can go find without waiting for me to get back to you, which I usually do pretty quickly, but you never know what might come up. All right. That being said, I'm going to go a little quicker this time on this next grouping. So I'm going to kind of continue with my numbers because I numbered everything, and I am going to show you a total of 30. So up next is number 10, and this was my first finish in 2022. This is the trilogy, You Are My Love Story. Disclaimer, this may be out of print and not be able to find. I bought it at my LNS, but it's been 2.5 years since I bought it. It's actually a whole kit. So it comes with linen, the floss you need to stitch it, and then you'll see there's a couple little charms on it. That it all comes with that. So I used all the called for on it because it came as a kit. And here is my stitch finish, and this is 32 count, so it's stitched 2 floss threads over 2 linen threads. Like I said, it's the called for. My personalizations, I added the year I stitched it. And let's see. Oh, the chart does have a space for names, and obviously Jeff and Michelle for us. And then the other thing I added was, in Roman numerals here, is the date we got married. And I pulled this out, so our anniversary's in January. I pulled this out last January and finished it. I can't remember if I finished stitching it before our anniversary, and then I just obviously haven't fully finished it. Oh, you sense a theme? Anyway, I have plans for the full finish. I have everything gathered and I just haven't gotten it done. This one is on my priority list to get done this year. So that's this one. All right, so that was number 10. It's hard for me to go quick and not share the same amount of detail that I usually do. All right, so bear with me if I seem a little more scattered. So this was my second finish of 2022, and I apologize for the glare, but I have this in a page protector. Winter Rose Manor from Brenda Gervais. And when I finished this, it was my largest finish I've had. Here is my beautiful stitch. Let's see. Details. This is stitched on, I thought I had it written down. Yeah, there it is. Okay. This is stitched on 40 count Brenda's Brew. And I used all called for colors except for, I substituted for the snow in the basket. I used Classic Colorworks Toasted Marshmallow, and I got that idea from Elizabeth Ann Can Stitch. Thank you, Liz. And using this color on this one has since led me to falling in love with Toasted Marshmallow, and I've used it a lot more. So, because I really like the color of it. Let's see. The other personalization I did on this one was, and I've heard other people talking about it, in particular the female Cardinal, the 2 shades of floss to make her wings stand out. The 2 shades that it's called for are now the dye lots. They're so similar. You can't really tell much difference at all. So when I was stitching mine to make the wings stand out, I cross-stitched the whole bird, and then I went back over with the called for color for the wing and did satin stitches on both the male and the female. And I think those turned out beautiful. So I love this. I have a frame to put it in, and I've had this done since last January, and you can see it's still a stitch finish and not an FFO. This one is on my priority list, and I will get it framed before the end of this year because I want to hang this up and look at it all the time. Okay. So that was number 11. Number 12 in our parade is a Blackbird Designs. And this is really, really beautiful. Okay, I gotta get better at talking while I'm pinning so that you're not just listening to dead space. So this is Blackbird Designs, Raise a Glass of Cheer. So there's the chart. Here is my finish. Whoops. There we go. And I have muslin stitched around it because I used a Q-snap when I stitched this. I have, over the past year, worked away from using a Q-snap, and I don't use a Q-snap anymore. I stitch in hand, and I'm working on each project as I go, adding more sewing method as I go. Anyway, I had to add those strips of muslin to fit it in the Q-snap to be able to stitch on it. And I've left them on there because I think I'm gonna need them in order to frame this. This is stitched on 40 count Brea from Needle and Flax. And That means I stitched 1 floss thread over 2 linen threads. I used the called for flosses except for the green on each of the flowers or flower pots. I substituted for Weeks Dye Works Oscar because the called for was not very green when I bought it. So that dye lot was different. Let's see, I had to rechart the year. So this one says 20 and this one says 22. In the chart it was something else, so I just had to adjust that a little bit. The other thing I did was and I don't know what else to call it. So in quilting, you call it fussy cutting to get a particular pattern in the fabric cut out and sewed into your quilt. So I called it fussy stitching, and I don't know if that's the right term or if there is a term, but that's what I'm calling it, fussy stitching on, because these flower blossoms have a large amount of variation in the color. I was very specific about what strand of floss I used and where I positioned it. And so as I stitched them, rather than completing whole flowers, I worked on a part of it and used a strand, and then I would use the same strand and do the same number of stitches on the opposite side to make them match. And I think that turned out really cool. So I was really happy with that. So yeah, I have a frame ready to frame this. It's not framed yet. And I'm pretty sure it's on my priority list this year. Okay. All right, now, well, I guess it's not necessarily all the next ones, but my next finish of the year was part of my March Stitchy Madness that I did. And this was actually the winner of my bracket. And for my March Stitchy Madness, the winner, I was going to have fully stitched and fully finished by the end of March. And the full finish didn't happen. So, I don't know. Time just gets away from me sometimes on some things. This is Tulip Festival from Brenda Gervais. And let me, see, now I'm getting better at talking, but then I forget to clip this on so I can show it to you. Come on, Michelle. Get with the program. All right. So here is my stitch finish. So I did finish stitching this in March. I just didn't get it fully finished. And you can see I pulled a thread around the hole outside because I think I have like it all planned out and I just didn't get it done. I'd have to look. I know I made notes and stuff and they're in a drawer. So let's see. Stitching details. This is 32 count. The color is linen from Weeks Dye Works. So it's linen, colored linen. 32 count, so I stitched 2 floss threads over 2 linen threads. And I used the called for flosses in Spirit. When I kitted this up is when you couldn't find at least half, if not more, of what was called for at the time. So I tried to stay similar to what it called for in the design. And the biggest substitution that I made that stands out on this one for me is I used Classic Colorworks Shamrock for her dress, and I just absolutely love it. So that was the main thing. So yeah, that's that one. And so like I said, part of March Stitchy Madness, and I'm pretty sure I have that on my priority list to do FFOs. I feel like I'm saying that a lot, and I know I only have so many on that list to help me be successful with my goal. So we'll see. Let's see. This one I started with Stitch Mania in 2021. And I had this was one of my stitches in my bracket for March Stitchy Madness. Oh, okay. So here is the chart cover. Heartstring Samplery, Farm and Folk, Penny Cushions. And I'm going to show you the barnyard animals there. And I know I've talked about this before. Jeff and I both grew up on farms. So that's one of the main reasons I picked this up, plus the penny in the name. So here's my stitchy finish. Details. 32 count Belfast linen in the color natural. I'm pretty sure it's a Zweigart. So that means it's stitched 2 floss threads over 2 linen threads. She gave us a chart for our initials and the date. So those are what was essentially charted. I used called for flosses, except for I made a substitution and used, let's see. Yeah, no black was called for in the original chart, but I used black to make the cow come out to be more of a Holstein, which is what Jeff and I both had on our farms growing up. And I have the FFO all planned for this. I have the supplies for it. It's going to essentially be a pillow that Jeff wants to have in his office at work. And I'm not sure if it made the priority list or not. So, but like I said, that was in my brackets for March Stitchy Madness. And I think I ended up finishing all the stitches that I had in that, in the March Stitchy Madness last year. And as an aside, I had a lot of fun with that. And I think I'm going to try to do something with it this year again. Just because it was really fun to put stuff up there and get votes from everybody on what I'll work on. And I don't know, it was fun. So I probably should be working on some plans for that if I'm going to do it though, because it's not that far away. All right, up next, hold please. Yes, up next is Hands-on Design, Let's Talk Stitching. I did this piece down here for the bag, and that is because I have the kit from Simple Stitches to make the project bag. Okay, so let's see, I gotta find my notes here. Okay. Here is my stitch finish. This was part of March Stitchy Madness, and I started this. This was a new start during March Stitchy Madness even. I chose not to use dark fabric to stitch on. So I have 32 count Vintage Stormy Night. So that means I stitched 2 linen threads over 2 floss threads over 2 linen threads. And let's see, I used mostly called for colors. There were a couple places where I needed to make a slight change because of my fabric color choice. And one in particular, I know I had to make this gray. I had to choose something a little darker or else it would never have shown up. The other big change was that the words are charted in a shade of white, and obviously that wouldn't show up it would show up okay on this fabric, but not great. So I chose to use my favorite Classic Colorworks Black Coffee. And like I said, I plan to make, or I have the kit to make it into the project bag that came from Simple Stitches Fabric Shop. Okay, I'm supposed to be talking and pinning at the same time. So this next one, I believe was another Stitch Mania 2021 start. You know, back that year in the month of May, I had a new start every day in the month of May. And there were a couple of the days I did more than one start because of what I was starting. They went together in some way or some form. And I don't remember, I should have written this down. I can't remember how many whips I entered 2022 with. But without having an intention of doing this, I almost went through and finished all of my whips. I think there's three, maybe 4 that I carried from 21 into 22 that I did not finish in 22. And I know I had at least 30 going into the year. So that was kind of cool because I don't think I do very well with a whole lot of whips. Is it obvious? I can finish stitching. I just can't seem to find it to get the FFOs done. It's nuts. All right. The next one is from Teresa Kogut. It is called Springtime Cottontail, and it is in this magazine, Punch Needle and Primitive Stitcher, and this is the 2021 spring issue. Let me see if I can find the picture of it real quick. I can. So there is the picture from the magazine. All right. And here's my stitch. Love this one, love the colors. That's what made me want to stitch it because it's a little different for me. And I don't know, that's why I loved it, I think. This was a Stitch Mania start for sure in 2021. And I can't remember for sure, this might have been part of March Stitchy Madness. I don't know, I can't remember for sure. Okay, stitch details. I used 32 count R&R Reproductions Winter Brew to stitch this on. I used all the called for colors, which was a combination of DMC and Weeks Dye Works. Because it's a 32 count fabric, that means I stitched 2 floss threads over 2 linen threads. And I did not make any changes or substitutions on this one at all. The only thing I added was my, initials and the date. I do not have a full finish specific plan for this one yet, so I'm not sure where it falls. I wish I could get it done soon because I love it and I would love to have it out, but only so many hours in the day, right? And like I said, I don't have a specific FFO in mind, although probably something sort of, in the framing type look, whatever that may fall. And actually, as I'm looking at it, I'm going, maybe, because it's a square, maybe I can find a square frame that would fit it and would be cute. Oh, I just had an idea. Because, well, this is kind of fun. I'm getting some FFO work done, or plans anyway. Because it's spring, let me show it to you again really quick. It's a spring stitch in this kind of bluish teal color. I think I've seen some fairly inexpensive square frames, like on Amazon, that are sort of a shade of this color. And that would look totally cute, which normally I wouldn't frame something in that if I was going to use it all the time. But for something to put out seasonally, it would be perfect. So, okay, note to self. I'll have to remember that. And go take a quick peek here in a little bit and see if I'm remembering it correctly and maybe get that ordered, because then it would be a fairly easy finish, or full finish, sorry. Up next, which is number 17 in our parade. So this is Berries in Bloom from Hands On Design. This chart, I believe, is available on her site, and I think it's a freebie on her site and still available. Like I said, it's Hands On Design, Berries in Bloom. Now, I'll post a picture here because this is my plan. I bought the kit from Simple Stitches Fabric Shop for this throw pillow, and that's what I stitched this up for. So I have a full finished plan. It's just not done yet. So here is my stitch. And let me check my details here. Obviously, I did not use the light blue fabric choice. I stitched this on 28 count affogato from Fiber on a Whim. Because it's 28 count, I used 2 floss threads over 2 linen threads. And I pretty much converted the entire thing to colors I liked better. So just for my personal style, like I used, in general, the greens are all a little darker, deeper colors and shades. The words, though, I think I used the called for color. And then same with the reds and pinks. I'm going to say they're a little more deeper, richer colors and shades. Again, just a personal preference. And then I added my initials and the date in here. This was a new start in part of March Stitchy Madness. And I don't know. No, I didn't have it stitched by the end of March, but it wasn't too long after that. This is really fast and fun. So yeah, so then I'll get a pillow done eventually with that. I'm really excited to make that patchwork pillow. I think it'll be, well, it's gonna be cute, of course. Let's see. The last one in this little grouping, I'm just gonna hold up because it'd be too hard to try to put it on that board. So this one is, if you're keeping track, number 18 in the parade. This is Hands On Design, Block Party 4th. And yes, I can show you the back. So the chart comes with the wool to finish the top of the pin cushion when you put it all together. And I got the pins to go with it because they are so cool. Like, look at that eagle. Awesome. Love it so much. So this was released last year, and when it was released, I had to have it, and then I stitched it. So let's see. Here is my finish. Oh, I can hold it up. I'll go like this so that hopefully you can still hear my voice pretty good. So this is obviously the sides of the block. I stitched this on 28 count antique copper Jobelin from Witchelt. Since it's 28 count, I stitched 2 floss threads over 2 linen threads. And I essentially converted the whole thing to use anchor flosses that I had. The colors are all pretty much what was in Kathy's design. I just subbed in anchor rather than DMC. And except for the wording and the big F, I did substitute that, and I used Classic Colorworks Black Coffee just because I love it. So I'll bring it up, and you can see there are my initials and the date, which I think worked in there really nice. So I can't see, oh here, if I back it up then there's the whole thing in one piece. And then just have to maneuver my fabric here. Fold it again, there we go. And then this is the top. And this is the bottom piece to make it all. So I have all the stitching done. And just a matter of getting the full finish on it. We'll see when that comes. I'm not sure if that one made the priority list. Again, like I said, my priority list for my FFO Challenge 2023, I had to be quite ruthless with, because I had to set my goal reasonable, which I decided on 2 per month. That equals 24 for the year. And I had 46 stitch finishes and only 4 FFOs from 2022. That means I'm rolling 42 finishes from 2022 over. And my goal is 24, so full finishes, right? So I had to be ruthless in cutting some of these. So I love this so much and I want it done, but then I had to prioritize. All right, so we are going to take another short break, or well, I'm going to get the remaining. So we're up to 18. That means I'll have 12 more to show you. And then we'll be able to wrap up this marathon of a finish parade. All right, we are up to number 19 in the finish parade. Here is the chart picture. Penny America from Tree of Life Samplings. You can zoom in there a little bit. So obviously Penny is in the name. I need to stitch it. And oops, let me check my notes. here is my stitch. Now, in addition to the name of this being Penny America, you see the word justice on the chart. And for those of you that don't know, or those that don't remember, or just because I like to share it again and again, our middle son is Justice. That is his name. And so not only do I like to collect things that have Penny in the title, or, you know, have a penny border, all those kinds of things, if I find anything patriotic that has the word justice on it, I need it for my collection. So this one was doubly special for me. And I've talked about that before, so I won't go into too much detail. This is stitched on 40 count affogato from Fiber on a Whim. One of my favorite fabrics of all time in terms of the color and just the fabric. It's really awesome. I used, let's see, all called for flosses, and they're all Weeks Dye Works overdyes. And I'm not sure if I have an FFO plan for this yet or not. I can't remember. But that is number 19 in the parade. All right. Up next is another patriotic stitch. And you'll see one of the reasons here very shortly why I picked it. Hint, what did I just explain to you about the last one? So I'm sure you're thinking about that. And here is the chart picture. Waxing Moon Designs, Patriotic Barn Trio. And what do we have? Justice. So cool. I chose to stitch all three together in a row, and I put Justice in the middle. The other reason I liked this was the barns. Again, Jeff and I both grew up on farms. And here is my stitch finish. It's pretty big, so it's hard to fit in the picture. It's pretty wide. This is stitched on 28 count cashel linen in the color flax. Maybe it's a Zweigart, I am not sure. Because I had it from a long time ago before I kept track of everything. So, let's see. So, if it's 28 count, that means 2 floss threads over 2 linen threads. And I used all the called for colors, which is Weeks Dye Works and Classic Color Works and 1 DMC. And I am going to kind of zoom in so you can see each of them. And after I finished this, I kind of wish I would have stitched each one individually. But, oh well. So I squeezed the date and my initials in there in between 2 of them. So, like I said, I put Justice in the middle. So what I'd like to do with patriotic stitches, I think, or at least some of them, is choose a wall and hang them all on a wall together, and that they would be up all year long. But again, I gotta work on that and plan it, so we'll see. Okay, I feel like I'm moving really slow. Let's move on. Up next is number 21 in the parade. Let me get it hooked up here. And this one I also picked for a significance, although you won't be able to tell why just from looking at it based on things I've shared right now. This is Hands-On Design, Knee High. So that's the chart. And here is my stitch. I stitched this on 28 count Vintage Country Mocha, which, by the way, Vintage Country Mocha is pretty awesome fabric in and of itself, especially for it being much less expensive. So 28 count means I stitched it 2 floss threads over 2 linen threads. I used all called for colors, excuse me, a mix of Weeks Dye Works and Gentle Arts. And here are my initials and the date. I have a frame for this. It will fit really nicely in an 8x10 frame, and I bought a barnwood frame, which I think fits this really well. And the reason for the significance, again, not to belabor the point, Jeff and I both grew up on farms, and both of us grew up with this phrase as both farms grew corn all the years that there was farming. So for me in particular, it stands out that knee high by the 4th of July, that my dad always said that. So I really like this. It was fun to stitch, and I really like how it turned out. Another one I can't wait to get it FFO'd, but you know, I haven't yet. All right, so that was number 21. Number 22, I featured in my FFO parade video, so I'll just go over it quickly. It's the Philanthropic Pumpkin from Hands-On Design. And here it is. So it was a kit, and I just had to add the DMC floss. Those are the called for colors. And if you want more details on that, you'll have to watch my FFO parade. Up next is number 23 in my finish parade. This is Letters from Nora, the letter V by Nora Corbett. And I got this to make for my Vivian. So I did quite a bit of personalization to change it for some of her favorite things. This is my only Mirabilia I've ever done. So, but it was fun for something different. And here is my stitch. The linen is 32 count Tallulah from Seraphim. And I think you can see in the video pretty good. It's got a lot of pink and purple modeling in it. Viv's favorite colors is pink, and then closely followed by purple. So that's why I chose that. And then the other kind of color change that I made, the dress, did I change the dress color? No, I think the dress is stitched in the called for color. I think her hair and the wings and everything are all stitched in called for colors. I changed the stitch color of the V, and then I think the large beads on the V, I got something a little different because what was called for wouldn't really go with the pink and purple kind of color combo. So, I mean, that was my main changes, was the making it pink and purple. I have a white frame to put this in. I just need to frame it. And this is on my priority list. I'm sure of it because I made it for Vivian and I want to be able to let her hang it up. I told you it was 32 count fabric. That means I stitched 2 floss threads over 2 linen threads. And I think that covers all of the details. The beading on this, I don't want to say it was hard, but I think it was a little harder than I expected it to be, maybe. And probably just because I'm not practiced with doing that, that's all. It would not keep me from doing beading again in the future. We'll put it that way. All right, number 24, I think is where we're at. Yes, okay. Hands-on Design, Block Party, Home. And I have the pins in my kit to add when I get the, when I get it done. Okay, and I don't think it really fits on the board. So there's the side. You can see all the Smyrna crosses in the grass, which I think turned out really cool. Let me find my details here. Okay, 28 count vintage country mocha. That means 2 floss threads over 2 linen threads for me. And let's see, I used a mix of called for and some of my own sort of changes. So anyone that's heard me talk much, you know that blue is not one of my favorite colors. That's probably my least favorite color. But I can appreciate blue in things. If I have a choice, I don't stitch things in blue. So I decided to make the houses, rather than them being red and blue, I went a little more sort of autumn shades. So it's a much more orangey red, rusty color that I substituted in. And for the other houses, instead of blue, I used kind of a bluish green, but really more dark green kind of color. I think it turned out great. I really like it. And I still think it all like flows together. So that was the main thing that I changed. Yes, was just the colors of the houses a little bit. And then here is, there we go. Here's the top. So you can see where I put my initials in there, where they fit, which I think is so cool. I really am excited to make one of these and like fully finish it and build it. And you're going, yeah, but then why haven't you? Good question. I just love the stitch. That's what it boils down to, I think. Okay, up next is, let's see. I got the kit for this from Country Sampler. This is Bobbin' Along from Notforgotten Farm. Now this I know I had in my March Stitchy Madness. It obviously didn't win. But this was so fun to stitch, and I fell in love with it because of that cute, cute robin on there. So, like I said, kit from Country Sampler. So it came with fabric, the called for DMCs, which is what I stitched with, and also a piece of wool to help me finish and make it into a drum when I do the full finish. Here is my stitch. Like I said, all called for DMCs. Sorry, I can tell you what the fabric is. I think that's written down. Yes, it is 40 count Earth is the color from Fiber on a Whim, which is just fantastic. It's so pretty with this. Called for colors. Oh, 40 count means 1 floss thread over 2 linen threads for me. And just thought I'd zoom in a little bit so you can see the stitching on that. I am extremely proud of how that stitching in that almost white color and all that solid stitching and how it turned out. So make sure and show you that. And then let's see, I worked my initials and the date in, so it's almost part of the design. I think that looks really cool. Again, I really look forward to making this into a drum and to do that because I haven't done that yet. I'm not sure where this one landed on my priority list. And, you know, as I'm thinking about it, I'm going to say a lot of what landed on my priority list is stuff that I stitched more for like in honor of somebody, or, you know, like in honor of my kids or for my kids, or, you know, my mom, anniversaries for my husband and I. So stuff like that, like, and I feel like that is the stuff that I chose to assign a high priority to get it done. All right, I'm supposed to be pinning while I'm talking. I need one of you to be standing here telling me that. Michelle, keep talking while you're pinning. Don't get distracted with the story and not be pinning and active while you're talking to fill these silences. Let's see, where are we at? Okay, this is number 26. So we're getting there. I think this would, well, no, we're past that now. In a marathon, I think it's mile 20 is where you really hit a wall. So we're past that because we're going up to 30. This is the Scarlett House, No Place Like Home. And this one I stitched just because I fell in love with it. I absolutely love that bottom piece that is all cross stitch to look like ticking fabric. That's what I wanted to say. Oh, and I have some extra doodads here. I'm not sure what I'm going to use yet, but these fell out of my little page protector where I was kind of keeping them, because I'm going to do something similar for this finish in terms of a pillow, and I liked her ideas of the charms that she used on the pillow. So okay, let's see my stitch. Here we go. Da da da. All right, this is stitched on, yes, sorry, 36 count. Picture This Plus Legacy. And so that means 36 count, I stitch 1 floss thread over 2 linen threads. And I remember when I kitted this up, again, this was way, back a little ways when you could only find like half the fancy flosses. They just couldn't make them or couldn't keep up with their supply and everything. So, but I'm looking at my notes and I think I ended up stitching pretty much all called for. I think, if I remember right, she has a couple of options listed for some of the colors. And so I think I had to pick, maybe not my first choice for something, but in particular, I love the house. So that worked out really well. Here's my initials and the date. And then the other thing I did to personalize this was I stitched that cute little black kitty, one strand of floss over one linen thread. So 1 over 1 instead of the dog. And when I charted that and everything, it was for our Jasper. So I need to get this done or fully finished and out. And I just love how the little kitty turned out. I think he's really cute. And so that's a special, you know, we'll just always remember it for Jasper. Okay, where are we at? Where are we at? Okay. Have I said okay a lot? I'm not sure. I've been filming for quite a while and I'm trying to think, oh, I hope this isn't too long. But there's so much to share. We're up to number 27. It is Hands-On Design, Block Party Mend. Sorry for covering the name there. Again, I have the little pin kit to go with this. And you can see the chart model is stitched kind of on a bluish fabric. I don't care for blue, so I chose something different. Let me see if I can set that down. All right, so I stitched mine on 28 count vellum from Picture This Plus. So that means 2 floss threads over 2 linen threads. And I'm gonna zoom in a little bit. There you can see my date and initials. And I love the measuring tape. I love the pin cushions. I love everything about this. I think it was really, really fun, and it was really fun to stitch. So that obviously is the sides. As for floss, it looks like, yep, I stitched this in all called for flosses. I just chose to stitch it on a different color of fabric. And then this is the top with all those little buttons. And I love this color that is used in these Smyrna crosses. Let's see if I can look at my note quick and tell you what it is, because it's been a while. It's Weeks Dye Works Cappuccino. It's called for. I just love it. You can see a lot of variation. I think that's cool. All right, so that wraps up number 27. Only 3 left. Let's see where we're at. Okay, we need to get this pinned, and I can talk while I'm pinning it on so you can see it. I will put a chart picture here. This is Flora Graphica from Hicks Creates. And I think when she released this, I saw her show it on Flosstube. So whenever that was, it's been a while. And I fell in love with it, and I had to get it and kit it up. And so last year I finished stitching it. Look at it. It is gorgeous. Let's see. Oh. I don't have my notes to this one, so I'll just kind of make it up as I go along. It is, I'm pretty sure this is 32 count, and it's just like natural or flax linen and probably a Zweigart. I used all the called for flosses. Since it's 32 count, that means I stitched using 2 floss threads over 2 linen threads. And the only change I needed to do is You can see this lighter purple of these flowers here and here and here. And then I think there's a little bit in some of these other flowers. And the called for, I'm not going to remember the name right now, but it was an overdyed, was a little bit too light to show up well on my fabric choice. So I found, it may have been Jan's suggestion for a DMC conversion that was a solid color and just a little bit darker than the overdyed. So I used, when I stitched those parts, I used one strand of that DMC and one strand of the fancy floss to just give it a little bit more color so that it would show up for me, again, on my fabric choice. Otherwise, I stitched it as called for. And I love the antique look of this. I love the colors in it. And I just think it's beautiful. And if I remember right, I would have to go back and look probably at my Instagram to remind myself for sure. But I think this is the piece that caused me to start stitching in hand and to stop using my Q-snap. This is where I started, and then I felt so free not holding a big Q-snap, but just holding my fabric in my hands, that it's continued. And like I said, I'm working on the sewing method. I can use it sometimes. Sometimes it's just too hard for me, so I still poke and stab. I just don't use talking too fast. I just don't use a Q-snap, but still, you know, the poke and stab method. I charted my initials and the year. And if those look familiar, that's because I used them on here and then I liked it so much, I used it on my Jeannette Douglas mini bouquet sampler stitch along finish. So the initials are stitched 1 over 1, and then the year is 2 floss threads over 2 linen threads, just like all the rest of the cross stitches in this piece. I have a custom frame ordered and it's here in my craft room ready to frame this, and I just haven't gotten it done. So I do know this is on my priority list for 2023. This will be finished and framed so that I can hang it up and enjoy it all the time because it's so gorgeous. So that is Flora Graphica from Jan Hicks. Let me just lay that out so it doesn't get too wrinkly. There we go. Okay. Now we are up to number 29, and it is another big one. So I'll work on getting it here on my board so that it's easier to hold. Now, this is Blackbird Designs, What Remains. And for those that have followed along with me a little bit more, there was a group of stitchers that were stitching this together, and in honor of our moms. All of us have unfortunately lost our moms, some of us younger than others. So for me, what happened was I started this on the anniversary of her death in 2021. And during 2022 was 25 years since my mom passed. And so I wanted to have this finished and framed before that anniversary, which was December 28th. I got the stitch finished and I got the frame ordered in here, and I just didn't get it framed because the holidays, I guess? I don't know. Anyway, here is my stitch. And like I said, I stitched this in honor of my mom. So let's see, my fabric choice was 36 count wheat from Fiber on a Whim. That means I stitched using 1 floss thread over 2 linen threads, so 1/2. I used all the called for flosses, and I stitched it as charted, except, let's see, I just gotta look at the front of this to remind myself. Okay, on the chart, there's only 1 initial, not 2. I put both my first and last name initial in there because I had room without any issues. And the only other change I made was I added my mom's initials and the years that she lived. And I'm going to zoom in on that. I stitched, her initials are, yep, okay. Her initials are cross stitches 1/1. The years are back stitched 1/1. And I just think that came out really beautiful. Like I said, I have a frame that I ordered and I just need to frame it. And the frame, I found a frame that has like this round bead detail that is very reminiscent of pennies being round, and the color of it is very close to a copper penny. So it's just gonna look awesome when I get it done, get it framed up, and I can hang it up and look at it all the time. All right, so that was number 29. Number 30 I shared in my FFO video, but I thought I'd share it one more time here. Penny Autumn from Plum Street Samplers. And I'm just going to be fairly quick on this to wrap it up. But there is my full finish of that one. So I finished the stitching. Obvious reasons of why I stitched it, but I love it anyway. This is on Ren from Picture This Plus. I love that color of fabric. And yeah, I fully finished this one. Isn't that cool? So that is Penny Autumn from Plum Street Samplers, stitched with called for colors. All the floss is called for, and actually, oh, even the fabric is the called for, which was Ren from Picture This Plus. That hardly ever happens for me. All right, yay! We made it through. So I just showed you 30 finishes from 2022. So now I gotta get to work on my hashtag FFO Challenge 2023. And as I have already asked once, I'm going to ask again. Please encourage, cheer me on. I need it. I want to get more done. And I would love if you want to follow along, and I'm more than happy to help cheer you on and encourage you. And that helps me a lot if I'm cheering someone else on. So it will be fun. And yes, that's a wrap. I'm not gonna babble on and on. So thanks again for sharing time with me, and I will talk to you soon.